producing comics is a big team effort, and it requires a lot of people to go through and get this book out onto the stands. And so I think I became frustrated by that. And so as much as I love the comic medium, it is so original. You can pull off stuff in that medium that you can't do in any other format. So I absolutely love it. And so now, unfortunately, I'm so disconnected from comics only because of financial reasons. I'm not really certain what's going on in the industry today. So it'd be tough for me to work my way back in. But if I did, I'd love to be able to do that if I could. But so that's that's the reason why I switched to prose writing and writing novels, just because it's all solely dependent upon me. So I don't even have to worry about it getting caught in development hell or waiting on an artist to go through and get the work done. It's kind of all on me. I get to reap all the financial rewards, which are pennies. But still, it's all, my success and my failure is all dependent upon me. So that's really the reason why I switched over to prose writing. And yeah, you could be right. A lot of my stuff that I'm doing now, it's mostly for me. So right now it's probably about half and half if you went through and broke down everything. But yeah, so I'm really happy doing the novels now.
Great. So we will do a series of shows on that. You've already shared a lot of information on the field today. And also, I want to get a conversation on mythology and superheroes.
Sure.
There's a book called My Gods Wear Spandex, which is a good place to start that conversation. But actually, I have a whole library shelf full of books on that topic. I'd love to engage you and John and Paul in that conversation. So that'll start at a later point as well. I will now pass the scepter over to John. John Carl Pepe, the scepter is yours.
Scepter received. Well, Ryan, that's all very, very fascinating. I think that it's really great that you got to tell those stories, to personalize them. Some of my questions were going to be actually, what are some of the other things that you've done, but we're going to actually cover that ground down the road. I do want to say really quick, it is fortuitous, I think, that Hercules lined this up. A lot of things and interactions do happen for a reason. I do a podcast with a gentleman who is an indie comic publisher.
Okay.
And his publishing house used to be called Amazing Action Comics, but now he has rebranded and it's Indie Creator Comics. And what we do on our podcast, it's on YouTube. If you search Indie Creator Comics with no space, it's going to be easier to find that. Every week we review indie comic number ones. So what that means is anything not by the big two. And so, because, the big two gets enough exposure, we like to try and help, other creator-owned stuff. We also like to interview indie comic creators as well. So that's another component of our show. So I say this because you mentioned that you've kind of been out of the comic game. But one of the things that we've encountered a lot, as far as what the publishing model is, a lot of people are doing crowdfunding. A lot of people are getting together with an artist and putting a book together and doing a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe. I think Kickstarter's right now the best place, I think, for a lot of these people to do that. So just want to keep that on your radar as far as if you do want to get back into comics, you always want to go brass ring, and it'd be great to work with one of the big two, or even, Image or Dark Horse or Oni, or Ignition Press coming out. But a lot of ways to get your stuff out there and then maybe get that exposure is to do a crowdsourcing, a GoFundMe type or Kickstarter type thing. So I just want to put that out there for you, because I think what you do is great, and along the lines of being unable to finish the story, so to speak. A lot of these myths, as you were mentioning in the pre-show, they're public domain. And there is probably nothing stopping you from taking elements from what you have done before, reworking them, and starting fresh, starting anew. I just kind of wanted to put that in your head if you hadn't thought about that. I hope you had. But one thing I do want to do is I'm going to find you and friend you on the Facebook, and I want to see if maybe I can get you on the other show as well, because I think you and Angel would have a good conversation as well about what it is to work, especially as an indie comic creator. So you did these back in you were working with Campfire back in 2010.
Yes.
What were you doing before? Had you done comic work before then?
So I was extremely lucky in that. So if you're familiar with Masters of the Universe,
Yes.
Masters of the Universe goes through and they have the Mike Young Productions comes along and they do the revamp. Online, you may see it references 200X. It's 2000X is how 200X how it's listed. So it was that rebrand. I was a huge fan of Masters of the Universe whenever I was a kid, and so I got really heavy into that remake. And so MV Creations had the licensing rights in order to go through and do the Masters of the Universe comic book. So it was produced by Image at the time when Masters #1 came out. I think it was like the #1 book that week, whenever it came out. And so I was under the impression that this company was getting inundated over and over and over again at the time. And so this would have been, I'm going to get my year wrong, but I want to say maybe 2004, maybe 2008, somewhere around in that area. But so I started pitching. I started doing submissions to MV Creations going, hey, I want to write this book. And so at the time I was a full-time father, and I was doing submissions to Marvel Comics in hoping to get a job with them as a writer. So I was like, well, hey, if I'm already doing submissions to Marvel, let's go ahead and throw them over to MV Creations too. Because so for those, without us being too inside baseball, Marvel doesn't want, it's very difficult to go through and pitch something to Marvel because I had to sign disclosure agreements that says, hey, we have people coming up with ideas all the time. And there's a pretty good chance that if you pitch us an idea, someone else in-house has already come up with that idea. So if we develop this idea, you can't come along and sue us for stealing your idea because everyone has these same ideas sometimes. So I was doing submissions to Marvel Comics at the time, so I thought, well, let's go ahead and switch this over and let's send them to MV Creations. I'll get two bang for the buck. And MV Creations came along to me and basically said, dude, we get it. You want to work for us, so slow down. You don't have to send us something every week. Because I was under the impression I'm fighting against thousands upon thousands of people trying to get in and do this book. But so I established a relationship with them. They came through and they gave me a test. They said, hey, write this for us. Write this. How would you handle this? And then they were nice enough. I was knocking on the door and kept knocking. So they said, hey, okay, we want to give you an issue. And so I did Masters of the Universe Volume 3, Issue 8, which unfortunately is the death knell of the series whenever it comes to MV Creations and their part of the book. So it wasn't intended for me to be the final issue, but it was. It just happened to be the final issue of that book. They didn't even know it at the time that I'd written it that it was going to be the last one. It was a big legal battle, so the lawyers went through and killed that book. So I'm very lucky in that I was able to work on Masters of the Universe as my first publishing gig. Then they came along. There was two different stories that they had. They had Dragon's Lair, so where the original writer, I want to say it was Andy Mangles, couldn't finish. He did 4 issues, couldn't do the last 2. They brought me in and said, hey, can you finish these last 2? Then there was another one that they had called Space Ace, where the writer is some little writer guy. I think his name is Robert Kirkman. He never became anything of any importance at all. I don't know who that is.
What?
I think he might have made a couple of bucks. I don't know. But so for whatever reason, Kirkman couldn't go through and finish. So I was like, dude, I followed the guy that wrote The Walking Dead. I mean, come on. But so I went through, finished that book. Finished that series for them, where it was just like he just couldn't finish it, so they handed it over to me. I go through, write it all out, and send it off to them. So then it's a series of relationships of, so I go to work for Arcana Comics, doing, little work for hire for them. They were very nice enough to give me my own book, which was called The Praetorian, which I think sold maybe 3 copies. I don't know, it was not successful, unfortunately. But that's just how it goes. It's how it is, and I think maybe the milk kind of soured a little bit after that, where it's like, hey, we sold 5 copies of this book. So it was just finding that next relationship, and so then got into Campfire, and that's where they tied me up for, I'd say, a good year or two in going through and creating stuff for them.
Very cool, very cool. That's a great breaking in story. That's a great pedigree. And yeah, I think I don't know. Just again, I think the comic world would be happy to have you back in whatever way you decide to strike back. But we're going to continue that conversation not only on this show, but hopefully you and I will kind of connect and discuss some stuff. I kind of want to talk about a little bit, because you've written graphic novels about Hercules and Perseus, and then of course Zeus. So I kind of wonder, because I gather you strive for fidelity to the source material, but with putting a little bit of a personal, anecdotal, humanizing spin on them. How do you? So I feel like you're very, you have fidelity to the original myths. How are you with adaptations that take their liberties? Definitely looking at Clash of the Titans, both versions, in regards to Perseus. And really, again, because I'm just so fascinated by these 2 movies that I watched as a kid, because again, it was Lou Ferrigno, the 2 Hercules movies that he made, which, again, you really want to stray far from the source material, those could probably stray no further. Do you still derive enjoyment out of those?